This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Hey, hi everyone. Welcome to your show, eCoffee with Experts. This is your host, Ranmay here. And today we have Josh Russell, who is the Chief Communication and Marketing Officer at California State University, East Bay. Hey, Josh, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Lovely. Josh, before we move any forward, why don't you talk us through your journey a bit? I mean, we come from a generation wherein we cannot say we kind of had aimed for our careers in SEO marketing, right? So talk us through your story then.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm born and raised in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. And so that's kind of unique. Just most people are from other places here. So, but my career journey is taken some interesting turns. I started working in advertising public relations, working for a few different agencies, working with different clients, high tech, consumer, all sorts of things on campaigns and branding and all that. So, and then decided I wanted to sort of go where my heart felt connected. And so I joined and started working in the nonprofit arts and culture space. And so arts and culture has always been a really big passion of mine, was really sort of influential in my life growing up. And so I raised visibility for arts and culture and artists throughout Silicon Valley for about 12 years. And then decided wanted to sort of do something a little bit different and support the community, but through a different way. So I started doing corporate social responsibility for Bank of America. So, supporting the nonprofit ecosystem and getting about 1,600 employees throughout Silicon Valley engaged, volunteering in nonprofits, et cetera. And so, and then about 7.5 years ago, decided I wanted to kind of shift again and went into higher education. And so I started at the community college level doing marketing public relations, and now as a chief communications officer at Cal State East Bay.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. And like you said, you stepped into a role that spans brand, digital PR, internal comms, and crisis strategy, right? So how do you architect a unified communications function that does not really operate in silos?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think to me it starts with making sure that we have an authentic brand and message. So more than anything, everything else, becomes sort of strategies. But if we're all connected and unified around the brand and around who we are and what makes us special and unique, then everything else can sort of connect to that. When I started at Cal State East Bay about a little over 3 years ago, we literally kicked off a whole sort of rebrand process. And so the first part is really just understanding how are we perceived among different audiences, our alumni, our current students and prospective students and staff, et cetera. And then what makes us different, what makes us special, and really kind of coming together around that first. So whether we're doing crisis communications or, external outreach or internal branding or public relations or social media, it's all connected to our brand and really sort of speaking from an authentic voice.
And in high level, what data signals do you prioritize as indicators that an enrollment campaign strategy is on track and needs or maybe needs recalibration?
Yeah. So enrollment's just by itself kind of an interesting animal in higher education, because the process is you get prospective students into the pipeline, you get them to apply, and you get them to a certain point on your system, and then they go off of your system and apply within the Cal State East Bay system. And then they identify some schools that they're interested in, and then they're in our system. And then we get to sort of reconnect and try to move them to enrolling and registering for classes. So from an enrollment campaign, and prior to me joining, enrollment actually lived in a different department, but they sort of moved it into university communications about 3 years ago. So for us, we're always in this sort of testing iteration phase. So for an enrollment campaign, we look at some of the more, I'd say, traditional lenses of how is it resonating and what kind of, how are our clicks doing and what's that translating to ultimately in terms of people actually applying, but also looking at a lot of our messaging. We use real students, real people, real alumni. Like everybody has kind of a lived experience when they come to the campus or are considering the campus. So we don't do a lot of like happy, smiley, sort of visuals. It's like real
Mm.
people sharing real stories. So we look to see which, what's resonating as we go through campaigns, in terms of message points, in terms of like what we're highlighting around the campus. Is it student life, that's resonating more? Is it more about the academics? Is it more about some of the specific programs that we offer? And so we're just sort of constantly iterating and testing to see how those are resonating across the different platforms, and then sort of shifting resources as we go to what's working.
And what specific growth levers, Josh, you feel has had the highest impact on application volume in your current role?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think for us, it's actually hasn't just been one thing that's worked better than others. It's actually been kind of the combination of multiple strategies. So, for every enrollment campaign, we probably have about 15 active different strategies happening at once. And so, it's things like actually being, 30-second commercials in the movie theaters in, kind of in this area with the geo-targeted connected campaign. And it's Snapchat has historically performed really well for us, 2 to 3 times higher than the industry average for higher education. TikTok, again, performs really well. Instagram, but, Facebook as well is done pretty well. YouTube ads, we use Amazon digital platform. That's worked pretty well. And then we also kind of this combination of, if you go too far only on digital campaigns, then you sort of miss out on the human connection. So we partner with radio stations and actually do live remotes on high school campuses, with opportunities for our student ambassadors to connect with high school students and sort of share their experiences. And so, a lot of our strategies are relatively local, hyper local, but really trying to sort of build stronger relationships and connections, and hit the key messages around who we are and what makes us special, and why
Mhm.
students should consider coming.
Hey, we hope you're enjoying the coffee and the conversation so far. This show is powered by Digital Web Solutions, and if you've ever wondered how the biggest brands actually build authority, this is it. DWS has a massive network of over 250,000 publishers, real sites that help you rank on Google, and more importantly, stay visible in AI search. It's the heavy lifting most teams just can't do on their own. As a thank you for listening, they're offering an exclusive free strategy call just for our eCoffee listeners. It's a great way to map out your authority plan for 2026. Just click the link below to book yours and see how they can help scale your brand. All right, now let's get back to the show.
And, talking about SEO, search behavior is now so fragmented across AI tools and social discovery. So, how do you engineer SEO and structured content to earn inclusion in AI overviews versus just traditional ranking?
Yeah. So that's interesting. So those are the conversations we're having right now. So um, we launched a new website in December of 2025. You know, that is a whole just massive process by itself. And, we've got a really small team internally that was driving that process and working with, external partner to build it. So, it's interesting. So we get to the point and we build it and we launch it and we're testing it and we're getting feedback from the community. And it's like, great, we've got the site launched, and then, geez, now we have to completely shift our thinking around making sure our site is searchable through the AI strategies and things. So like we're literally in this process of talking about what we need to do to shift and change the content and change the structure and add more video content and change the language and the frequency with which we're going to need to refresh the content. And so I think again, we've had a few meetings over the last couple of weeks with this. Oh man, we've got to, like, our job literally has just started now, and we're going to have to really start deploying some new strategies.
What is your favorite AI platform, Josh? I mean, which one is the one that you're using the most these days?
Well, yeah, I mean, like from kind of a day to day, I'm using ChatGPT a lot from a kind of a day to day, standpoint. I do like Grok quite a bit. I've had some fun creating some really kind of fun video content with that, and we've done some kind of interesting, sort of fun content, especially social media using Grok, and getting our as part of our whole rebranding process, we launched a new mascot for the university. So the university was without a mascot for 6.5 years. So, and a mascot's a really important part of the identity of schools. Anyway, so we developed the animal, in this case, peregrine falcon, and all the thinking that went around that and all the testing. And so we've been using AI to do a lot of sort of animating of the character and doing sort of fun things, and May the 4th and Star Wars Day. Anyway, so I think that's been more of a kind of fun engagement platform. But those are the two that I've used.
Okay. And while we are all optimizing for the LLMs, right, and AI search visibility, what do you think, is the biggest optimization opportunity that higher education communicators are overlooking, while preparing for this LLM and AI search
Yeah.
visibility?
Yeah. So, I mean, more than anything, I feel like, and this is not to be disparaging for higher education in general, but I feel like there's a lot of things that are higher education is a little bit slower to sort of adopt, or get on board with, or at least in terms of the speed to market. And I think that's partly because, I think every institution is, resource challenged, especially, people resources. And so, but, so we launched a kind of an AI enrollment tool, that we layered on top of our website. That's, not like it's essentially a form, pop-up form that, students, as they're, looking at it, and it's sort of asking them questions about, hey, what are you interested in? When are you thinking about starting? And, you know, what are your goals? And are there things that you're nervous about? And so, a little bit more kind of a human experience. And so, and I wouldn't call that the most revolutionary, AI
Hmm.
tool of all time, but I think that we're also on the very front end of even doing that. So I think there's, in higher education, I think there's a little bit of a not even sure of all that's possible. And again, like I said, we just launched our website, and now it's like, oh shoot, we're already way behind. And I know that there are other, universities that are in the process of just redesigning their websites now. So they're even behind us, you know what I mean? So it's almost like you have to kind of put a different hat around higher education, and then looking at the space and where things are at, and how, where the, I guess, adoption rate is, especially around AI.
What is one of the biggest misconceptions, Josh, that you feel, marketers have around AI's role in higher education communications that,
Yeah.
you would wish leaders kind of stop repeating now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and I say this is higher education, but I think this is probably a lot of other industries and a lot of other things too, is that I think there's a tendency of, when there's something new, that people just go to
Oh,
the
yeah.
far extreme of it. And it's like,
True.
we're all in on AI, when figure out what AI means. And I think, to me, what makes for real success and sustained success is finding a balance of, if you go too far to that side, then you start sort of missing out on some of the strategies that are connecting other audiences. And so, what we've seen, especially from some of our current students, is when we do things sometimes that are like obviously AI, and is that they almost have an averse reaction to it. And so my daughter, she's a junior she goes to Boise State. And I was talking to her
Okay.
about something the other day. I said, just, why don't you plug that into ChatGPT and see what it says? And she's like, oh, no, 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 no. I don't trust it. I'm not doing it. I said, okay. I mean, that's interesting. But so, it's like, if you go too far and you're just sort of trying to chase whatever you know, the next thing is, and you ignore some of the fundamentals, then I think that's where you have an opportunity to really start to miss some blind spots.
Now, if you had to prioritize one strategic action, Josh, for institutions, facing generative search disruption today, what would that be, and what is the reason for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to have to be, our website first. I mean, the website that's the front door, and it's where, it's where students come to learn about who we are and get a sense of
Yeah.
the community and the experience. And no matter how many online classes you offer, there's something about the physical space that's really important. Even if
100.
you don't physically come to campus, like you're connected to the campus. And so I think for us, it's thinking about how do we kind of find the sweet spot of our website so that it is AI enabled and that, we can be found and that we're, I think shifting the way we talk about ourselves to be more sort of concise and to the point and structurally organize our content in a different way. And, knowing that like,
Hmm.
Instagram reels are now searchable, like what's the content that we're putting out on social media and understanding how that connects to prospective students learning more about us. And so I think that to me is the priority is like sort of taking a different lens, shifting right and the language we use and the structure that we talk about ourselves so that we could kind of find the balance between.
Now, finally, as someone, who has been in the space for quite some time now, right? You worked in agencies, you worked in brands. For our young listeners today, right, who are trying to make a mark in the digital marketing space,
Yeah.
if you were to share that one piece of advice, what would that be?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of value in coming to every single new project or initiative or job if you're starting a new job with a fresh perspective and a lens and asking the right questions on the front end. And um so I think every person brings with them a unique skill set. And so I think it's important to come in and be confident in your experience and your voice and your perspective, and to bring that to whatever you do, whatever the next trend is, whatever it is, understanding, thinking about things in a little bit of a different way and not just how's it always been done or let me just take this and build on it, sometimes take it a step back. But I think that's what when we have even student workers that come and work in our department, say, hey, you're the closest, you're the closest person to our target audience. So does this resonate with you? What do you think about it? Be real. Give me your honest feedback. And and I think be confident in your opinions and your thoughts and what you bring to.
Lovely. Perfect, Josh. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much once again, for taking our time to do this with us. Really appreciate it, man. Cheers.
Yeah, thank you. It was really fun. Thanks for having me.